Okay, today's daf is Shabbat Ayin Zayin. Today's daf is sponsored by Danielle Barta in honor of her mother. In Daniela's words, she inspired me to start learning Daf Yomi with Hadran and inspires me always to be the best me. So in her honor. Okay, today we're starting at the bottom. We have a bit of I would say a strange daf, a little bit atypical, although as you've been noticing with dafim in general, there's always atypical dafim in the middle of any kind of section. We're talking about the shiurim of what amount of liquid measure does one need to be obligated of taking it out from reshut to reshut. So we're going to start from the bottom. I'm a Rava, okay, or maybe we'll go back a little bit to the Gemara. They started off with saying, what's a kos of yayin? So we said, kedei mizigat kos yafeh. Then they said, well, what's a kos yafeh? So we said it's a kos shel bracha. Right? A kos shel bracha is what we're talking about here. That it needs to be for something you would use for kiddush or something like that, which is generally a revi'it. So now they're going to say, well, how much wine does one need for a revi'it? So they say, kos shel bracha tzarich sheyeh bo rov revi'it kedei she'im ze genu v'yamod revi'it. So 3 parts water to 1 part wine. Therefore, we're going to have, if a revi'it is a quarter of a log, then we need a quarter of a log for our shiur, because you need the wine is a quarter of the general cup. I'm a Rava. Now Rava's going to prove this. Af ana nami tanina. I can prove it from our Mishnah, because it says in the Mishnah, hamotzi yayin kedei mizigat kos, vitane ala, and it says about that Mishnah, right? We just learned this, kedei mizigat kos yafeh, right? It means for a nice cup. Vikatane seifa, and if you look at the end of the Mishnah, it says, ushar kol hamashkim berevi'it, which means that it must be a revi'it. In other words, it didn't ever say in that Braita there was a revi'it, but they say, just like it says all the other shiurim are a revi'it, so here also we're going to obviously need a revi'it. The Rava l'ta'amei da'amal, right now here you have to say, well, Rava must go according to his approach that, kol chamra de lo dare al chad tzlat mai alav chamrahu. If you don't add 3 parts water to the wine, that's not considered wine. There was a sense that the wine was so concentrated that if you don't add enough water to it, it's not really edible or drinkable. So therefore, we're going to say, Rava says basically, in order, since it says in our Mishnah that all the shiurim are revi'it, we assume the kos shel bracha is a revi'it, and therefore we assume a rova revi'it would be your shiur. So Amar Abaye shtei tshuvot b'davar. Abaye says, I have 2 issues with what you say. Chada ditnan v'hamazog shnei chelkei mayim ve'echad yayin min hayayin asher honi. If you remember from Nida, those who learned Nida, it talks about the different colors of blood that are problematic. Like they don't exactly have a color chart. They can't use RGB and give you exactly these are the shades of red that are going to be problematic. So there it says that what are the colors? They give 5 different shades of red, and one of them is mazug, which is this wine that's mixed with water. How much they tell you? Well, if you take the yayin asheroni, which is the yayin from the Sharon region, okay, for those living in Ranana, listening from there. So yayin asheroni from the Sharon area, and it's how much? 2 parts water to 1 part wine. So what do you see here? You see that mazug isn't necessarily always 3 parts water. So I disagree, number 1, with that, because you see here it's 2 parts water. Secondly, I disagree with you with another issue. Od mayim bekadu mitztarfim. If the shiur is a revi'it that needs to be considered an important shiur, what did we just say? To be chayav for taking out wine, you're obligated if you take out a quarter of a log. That's a quarter of the regular shiur. So what's his question? His question is, what the quarter of a log is, what its potential is. The quarter of a log, because you can mix it with 3 parts water and it can turn into a kos shel bracha. But comes Abaye and he says, you're counting mayim bekad, you have water in a pitcher in your house, you're walking out now with this quarter of a log, and you're saying that that's going to be chayav because potentially you can add water to it and it can get to a revi'it, but the water's in your house and you're walking out with this teeny shiur, you're going to be chayav for something that's not even in what you're carrying, right? It seems weird. It's almost for its potential. Why are you carrying it for its potential if right now you can't drink it and you need a lot more, and the shiur for general for carrying out as a revi'it, why don't we just say you need a revi'it of wine? Either, the concentrate of wine as shiur of a revi'it, or actually mixed with water only, you'd be chayav. So he takes issue both with the the 3 parts instead of 2 parts water, and with why you chayav just for taking out this very concentrated wine that you can't really drink as is. So he answers, Amalei Rava, if you're going to, the first question, I'll go question by question. Your first question, I'll have 2 answers. Okay, it was funny. He said, I have 2 questions against you. He's going to now have 2 answers for this. He says, number 1, Yayin Asheroni Lechud. That was a particular type of wine from the Sharon region. Dirafe, it's very weak wine. And therefore, that wine only needed 2/3 water. But regular wine would need 3 parts water. Inami, alternatively, you could say, you're bringing a source that's talking about shades of colors. Hata mishum chazuta, that's all about what shade do we want it to be, to say, if you have blood, this shade. So we're telling you, if you were to take this concentrate of wine from the Sharon region, and you added to it 2 parts water, the color that you would get would be the color that's problematic for Nida. But if you were going to drink that wine, you would have to add 3 parts. In other words, they weren't talking about drinking wine there. It all had nothing to do with that. It was just trying to give you a color shade. So it told you, oh, take this and add 2 parts. And if you look at that color, that's the color of Nida that would be problematic blood. But if it's for drinking purposes, even the Ayin HaSheroni potentially, people probably put 3 parts water, and therefore it doesn't prove anything about drinking wine. Now, what about your question? How can you count as if you're carrying out a revi'it when you don't have all the water in your cup and you're only carrying that very small amount? Well, that's obvious because Li'inyan Shabbat, we keep going back to the same line. For Shabbat, you need something that's significant. And because you need something significant, this is obviously a significant amount because this is something you can make a cup of wine out of. So it doesn't matter if it's a very small shiur, it's something worth a lot, right? Think about liquor, right? You take a little teeny shot of it, that's already significant. So that's what they're saying here. Now, you wouldn't drink this, but you would make a cup of wine with it, and it's very easy to get water. You can get that anytime. So just that small amount of wine is actually significant enough to be chayav to be obligated if you take it out on Shabbat. Okay, now we're going to talk about what happens if the wine dries up. Okay, if the wine dries up and becomes, let's say, coagulates. I don't know what the word you would use actually for wine. We're going to compare it to blood. Blood coagulates, but if the wine dries up and you now have a solid block of wine, how much will you need? So we talk about liquid measurements, we measure it in a log, in a volume measure. Talk about solid measurements, it's usually kazayit, kibetza, things like that. So the question is, what's the ratio? What does a revi'it of wine turn into if you dry it up? So Tana, yavesh bekazayit divrei Rabbi Natan. Rabbi Natan says it's a kazayit. A revi'it dried up is a kazayit, which makes sense if we say generally most times, now for hotza'ah it's a little bit different, but most times we say kazayit is the shiur for food and for solid foods, and for liquids it's a revi'it. So this ratio would make sense. Divrei Rabbi Natan, although it wouldn't make so much sense why in carrying on Shabbat it's a grogeret and not a kazayit. I don't know the answer to that. But anyway, he says, Yavesh b'kazayit divrei Rabbi Natan. Amar Rav Yosef, Rabbi Natan, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, amru davar echad. His approach is consistent with the approach of Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. We've seen this before where there's an attempt often to say, oh, we have one opinion here, we have one opinion there. They're actually both saying the same thing. So what's Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda saying? Detanya. Here's a bright. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. First we're starting with Rabbi Yehuda, then we'll get to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Shisha dvarim mikulei bet shamayim michumrei bet Hillel. There's 6 things that are from the kulei bet Shammai. These are ways generally Beit Hillel was more machmir than Beit Shammai. But in 6 cases, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Beit Hillel was more machmir, stringent, and Beit Shammai was more mekel, lenient. What were one of those cases? Okay, we're only going to mention one of them, is dam nevela. Dam nevela is the blood of an animal that dies on its own, that wasn't slaughtered properly. Generally, it says in the Torah that the meat from the nevela animal is mitame. It actually is also impure. It carries impurities. That's tumat nevela. Not only the blood, the meat, but also the blood. There's a machloket about it. So Beit Shammai mitaharim. Beit Shammai says it's only the meat that carries impurities, not the blood. But Beit Hillel, they're more stringent here, mitamim. They are mitame, dam nevela, carries impurities. But Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, here comes our important line. Av keshetimu Beit Hillel lo timu ela bedam sheyesh bo revi'it. What was the shiur of blood that's matame? When they said blood is matame, it's not a few drops of blood. It would have to be a revi'it. Because why a revi'it? Because if it coagulated and dried up, it would turn into a kazayit. Okay, that's the amount. Because the kazayit of nevela is the shiur for impurities. If you want it, if you have a piece of meat, of nevela meat, in order for it to carry impurities, it has to be at least a kazayit. So now they say, so dam sheyesh bo revi'it, that's the shiur. So that perfectly matches what Rabbi Natan said, that there's a direct correlation between a revi'it, liquid measure, to a dry measure of a kazayit. Now, anyone who cooks, bakes, right, or knows stuff about measurements knows that different, right, volume doesn't always compare to, right, if you dry it out, different things will come to different measures. And that's now what they're going to suggest, which is you don't necessarily have to connect these two. So Amar Abaye, Dilma Lohi. Abaye disagrees with Rav Yosef about this comparison. And he suggests in two directions. You could say, you could say that Rabbi Natan was only saying you need a revi'it with wine because wine is very thin. Aval bedam de samich, blood is very thick. And because it's so thick, kazayit lo bai revi'it. You could have even less that would add up to a kazayit. Okay, so therefore they're not necessarily the same. So by blood, even less than a revi'it could theoretically get you to a kazayit. Inami, alternatively, you could say, that maybe Rabbi Yossi, and we're going to say each one maybe only said it in his case, but would think otherwise in the other case. So maybe when Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda said it about blood, he would say, Hatam de kazayit sagile berevi, that a revi is enough to get you to a kazayit. Aval bedam, ela bedam de samich. There you would say you need a revi. But yayin de kalish, kazayit havi yoter mi revi'it. He's saying because wine, which is much thinner, could be more than a revi'it. In other words, what he's going to say is like this: that that when you take out less than a kazayit, you might actually be chayav. And Rashi explains that since the wine is very thin when it's I don't understand it's 100%, but when it's in a liquid form, it's got more volume to it. And because of that, when it dries, it comes to a smaller shiur. Okay? And therefore, if it's, right, so you would say here, yayin de kalish kazayit, 1 second, it would be more than a revi, right? A kazayit would end up more volume, right? Because you need more than a revi to get to your kazayit. Okay? And therefore, it could be that if you have a revi, it actually turns into less than a kazayit. Okay? So you'd be obligated in a smaller shiur of congealed wine. Okay. Halav kedei gemi'ah. Now we're going to get into a very strange, this is all going to be about when you have, okay, for those especially, I would say, English speakers who didn't grow up with Hebrew as much, sometimes you don't know the difference between an ayin and an aleph, when you use an ayin, when you use an aleph. So the Gemara is going to start asking questions about, was this word with an ayin or was it with an aleph? And they're going to have a whole list of questions, okay? The first one's very interesting because our Mishnah is actually written with an ayin, and we're going to see in the Gemara they actually say it's with an aleph. All the others are going to match kind of what we know it to be. This one, the first one's a little bit strange. So halav kedei gemi'ah, for a swallow, right? Enough milk that you would kind of put in your mouth for one big swallow. Ibayilhu, kedei gemi'ah with an aleph, right? Unfortunately, my olives and ayins, I don't pronounce them any differently, so you're not going to hear it in my voice, okay? If I had a better accent, you would hear it, right? The ayin is a more guttural letter, right? I see Tov is here, my speech therapist, right? She could maybe teach me how to do it, but I can't do it yet. So, kedei gemi'ah or kedei gemi'ah, right? With the ayin, I'll try. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, hagmi'eni na ma'at mayim mikadech. This is from Rivka at the well, right? And the servant of Abraham. She says, right? He says, hagmi'eni na, draw me out ma'at mayim mikadech, from your kad. So what do we see here? It's with an aleph and not with an ayin. Again, if you don't have the text in front of you, it's harder to understand the sugya, but I'll try to explain it in case you're not looking at the text. Ibayelu, gal'inim or gal'inim. When we say pits, where this came from, these aren't going to be just random words. They're talking about words from sources. Right now, we're sticking with our Gemaras, but soon they're going to jump off to other Gemaras. So in the Mishnah, the previous Mishnah we had, the chutz mikli patan v'garinehem v'uktsehen. So when we talk about not counting the pits in the shiur, so how do we spell pits, with an aleph or with an ayin? Amar Rabba bar Ula v'nigara me'erkecha. Okay, this is basically getting into the etymology of words. So nigara me'erkecha, this was from last week's parsha. Talk about after the Yovel, when you sell your property, you then deduct how many years it is till the next Yovel. Nigara means we deduct, and pits are like deductions, right? There's something that's bad from the food, okay? It's something that we take it out of the food, we remove it. It's kind of lessening the food. So therefore, it comes from the Lashon Nigara, okay? If you ever thought about this, the etymology of the word, so you have Nigara. Ibailu, omimot o omimot. Here we're skipping to a different topic. This is about Yom Kippur. You're supposed to take the gechalim for the whole process of what you go through with making the ktoret and bringing it into the Kodesh Kodeshim. You take gechalim, these coals, omimot. They're dimming coals, not when the fire is burning strongly. So is dimming from the word with an ayin or with an aleph? So Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, arazim lo amemuhu began Elohim. Okay, this is a pasuk from Yechezkel saying the cedar trees could not hide it in the garden of God. Okay, so what do you see in that pasuk? Again, without the text, it's hard to know, but amemuhu comes with an ayin. Here it means to hide, right? Hiding is already, it's like dimming. So there you have it, with an ayin. Ibayalahu, ma'amtzin tnan o ma'amtzin. Okay, this is a halacha brought in Masechet Shabbat also, about you're supposed to in general, you close the eyes of a dead person. Now, you can't do this on Shabbat. So it talks about because the body is muktzah. Remember, we learned about dead bodies being muktzah. So you can't close the eyes on Shabbat. So when they talk about closing eyes, it's called ma'amtzin. So is ma'amtzin with an aleph, or is it ma'amtzin with an ayin? Right? This is something we know in basic Hebrew. La'atzom einayim, right? To close. So Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, v'otzem einav mera'ot bera. And he closed his eyes to prevent him from seeing bad things. So otsem is with an ayin in this pasuk. So there you have. Okay, that's the end of the etymology of words. Although we're going to see that the Gemara is going to move to etymology, not in the sense of words, but maybe other things later on in the daf. Okay, as I said, the daf is a bit off the regular track today and getting into all sorts of things that we don't see in typical sugyot, although this does come up in other places sometimes. They want to know, is this with an ayin, is this with an aleph? Okay, continuing on. Tanu Rabbanan. Hamotzi chalav shel behema kedei gmi'ah. Okay, this is the same as our Mishnah in this Braita. It says how much milk, the milk of the animal's milk, the amount it would be 1 swallow. Chalav shel isha, breast milk, v'lo ben shel beitzah, the white of the egg. Kedesh litain b'mishifa shel kilor, kedei lashuf kilor. Okay, so in order to put in the mishifa of the kilor, people would sometimes put, I guess, the breast milk or the white of the egg in the ointment of the kilor that you would use. Okay, we talked about this. This was a salve they would put on their eyes. So the amount that you would put in there, kilor kedei lashuf b'mayim, the kilor, the amount of water that it would take for you to, the amount of kilor of the salve, how much to take out on Shabbat, the amount that if you put water in it, right, it would be you would use, kind of you would pour water in it to use on your eye. By Rav Ashi, kedei shifa or kedei achiza v'shifa. When you talk about putting an ointment on, think about it. You put on your finger and then you put on, let's say, your eye. So now we're here, you're going to put it on the bandage. Now, when you do that, you have to use a little bit extra because some of it gets into your finger. So this is a very nitpicky question because it's very much, there's a very minor difference, but they want to know, is it the amount that you need to put on your finger that some might get absorbed in your finger, or is it the amount that you actually put on the bandage that will go on your eye or in the kilor, the exact amount that's going to be used? And the answer is teku. Often with these nitpicky questions, we don't really end up with an answer. Dvash kedei litein al hakatit. Okay, we talked about honey, that it was used to put on a wound, either a wound on an animal or potentially maybe it was a wound on a human. Tana kedei litein al pi katit. There's a Braita that says it a little more specifically, to put on the mouth of the wound. So by Rav Ashi again asks, al katit apuma de kula katit, o dilma amorsha kama de katit, la fuke hordina de lo. Do we mean, when we say on the mouth of it, do we mean just the edges and not the circumference of it? or do we mean the whole circumference of the wound? Again, I'm not exactly sure what kind of wound we're talking about, because generally you would put something on the whole wound, but there must be a case where you put, and they're trying to figure out a little part of it or the whole part of it. Where do you, how much are we talking about? And again, we don't have an answer. Okay, here comes another very interesting line in our daf. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Okay, why are we getting here? Technically speaking, we're getting here because we just talked about the katif, this wound, and now we're going to learn another solve that one can put on this wound. But it's going to come in an interesting form. When God created the world, nothing was created without a purpose. Everything has a purpose. Okay, here goes our list. We're going to have 5 things. The snail was created in order to help heal this type of wound. Okay, a fly was created for a wasp bite. If you have a sting from a wasp, you use a fly. Okay, exactly. You use it, it seems you crush it up and put it on. Yitush, a mosquito, right? We're now starting to talk about all sorts of annoying creations that you might think, why on earth were these things created? And you're now going to see that they have a purpose. L'nachash, if you get bitten by a snake, you use mosquitoes to get rid of the wound, to heal. V'nachash, and this is funny, right? For a snake bite, you need this, right? You don't really want snake bites. Oh, but snakes, even though they seem pretty bad, well, nachash l'chatafit. You can use a snake to heal skin problems. Okay? I don't know if you want to try this, but we'll see. V'samemit. Okay? This is either some sort of spider or something, gecko, according to the Koran, they call it a gecko. Le'akrav, for a scorpion bite. Okay? Some people say, by the way, a scorpion, the Maharsha says a scorpion is the end game because there's nothing good about a scorpion, okay? And that's like the worst of the worst. And they were really just created, according to the Maharsha, to punish people. That's what the scorpion was created for. Okay, anyway, now the Gemara says, hey, chiyavidle, how do you do this? Now, it's not clear what he's asking about, okay? I noticed, by the way, that in the Schattenstein, they say this is talking about the snake, and in the Koren, they say it's talking about the gecko. So it's interesting. There's 2 different interpretations here. I didn't see who they were all based on, but they must come from different mefarshim about what this line is referring to. Theoretically, maybe one could say it's referring to all of them, although it seems very specific. It seems like it's talking about one specific thing. You'll see why. It's not just take them and let's say grind them up, but take one white one and one black one. That's why I think they're talking about a specific type, either a white snake and a black snake or a white gecko and a black gecko. Boil them up, boil them up, and then grind them down, and then you put it on your wound. Okay, so that was an interesting one. Now we're going to go on even more about some interesting things. Tanu Rabbanan, Chamisha emotim. Okay, there's 5 things that people fear, or animals we're really talking about, that are emat chalash al gibur, where we have a strong animal that gets scared away by a much weaker animal. What are the 5 things? Emat mafgia alari. If you have a little animal who can scream really loud, that can scare a lion because the lion's going to think that some big animal is coming to attack and he'll run away. Emat yatush alapil. A mosquito can really bother an elephant, okay? And what's the main problem? Well, the elephant is so, right, it doesn't really have a hand or anything to swat it away with, so it's stuck, right? It can get like in his ear, let's say, and there's nothing you can do about it. Emat samemit alakav, again, a scorpion can be bothered by this little gecko by going, this is interesting because we said a gecko is a cure for an akrav. Maybe it actually means not that it cures a scorpion bite, but theoretically it cures us from the scorpion because it can drive the scorpion crazy because it can go in its ear. Again, I'm reading according to an interpretation that I read. It could be there's other explanations as to how to read this, but that it can go in its ear and really bug it, right? And the scorpion has no way to get it out. Emat snunit ala nesher, a little swallow can bother the big, gigantic eagle. Why is that? Or vulture? Because it can get under its wings, according to what I read, and it can basically block it from moving its wings. Okay, it can block it from being able to fly. Emat kilbit al livyatan, a little teeny fish can also supposedly get in the ear of the big livyatan, and therefore he can basically drive it mad. Okay, so here you see these little creatures can have large effects. Okay, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, last line before I go back and explain a little bit about what this is doing here. Where do you get this from? A pasuk, hamavlik shod al az. that God can lift the downtrodden over the strong. Okay, that the little creatures can actually affect the strong ones. So think of this game Peel Chatul that we have when the kids were little, and you know how it's about the Chatul can bother the elephant, you know, the cat can drive the elephant mad, even though the dog can scare the cat away, you know, and it was like which scares which and which kind of, you know, can affect the other. Anyway, what's going on here? What's this all about? So again, I think this keeps going back to our main idea. Here, what are we talking about? Especially we have that question, this little teeny bit of wine, you're going to be obligated for bringing out of the reshut, right? And that sometimes very small things can be very significant, right? It's all about what you do with them and how something very seemingly insignificant can actually be very significant. And again, it all goes by the significance of it, right? You might say, why were these things created? But they have a purpose. So likewise with Shabbat, everything has a purpose, right? And if it has a purpose, then it's meaningful, and meaningful meaning you're going to be obligated on Shabbat because you did something meaningful. But if not, then you're not. And I think it all has to do with this same concept we keep coming back to over and over again about the importance of intent and what it was done for. And it's actually interesting because we're talking about the intent of God when he created the world, which is what Shabbat is all about. We're commemorating the creation of the world, so to speak, every week. And that's the idea here about the creation of the world. And almost like saying, if you would think that these things aren't significant, everything really has a purpose. Okay, moving on. Rabbi Zera, Eshkach Rabbi Yehuda de Havakai Apitcha de Bechamur. We're going to have another strange section now. So Rabbi Zera found Rabbi Yehuda one day that he was at his father-in-law's house. Okay, at the entrance to his father-in-law's house. He saw he was in a very good mood. If you remember Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Zera was the student of Rabbi Yehuda. We saw Rabbi Zera when he was going to go to Eretz Yisrael, and Rabbi Yehuda was against it, and he didn't want him to know, right? But anyway, he went to see him despite that. Anyway, what happens in this story? This story has no connection. I was just reminding you of the connection between the two of them. And you realize that he was in such a good mood that he could ask him any question in the world and he would answer him, right? This is a good example of sometimes you have to know when to ask people questions, right? Sometimes they're not in the mood to answer questions like this, but he realized he was in a good mood and good day to ask him all sorts of questions. Amarle, so he starts to ask him questions about the way of the world. Okay, this connects with what we've been talking about why things were created. My time at easy maskam bereisha v'hadar imre. Why did the goats go first when you have the flock? Why did the goats go first and then the sheep or then the ewes? So Amarle, kibriyato shalolam. It's just like the creation of the world. Tiberesha chashocha v'hadar nehora. First there was darkness, then there was light. So the goats are darker than the sheep. So the goats go first, then the sheep. So then he says, my time mahani mechasian v'hani megalyan. Why are the sheep covered? Okay, because the sheep have their private parts are covered. They have a tail, and the others, the sheep are covered, and the goats are uncovered. They don't have a tail that covers their erva. So hani de machasya minayu de machsinan minayu michsian. Those who cover us provide cover for us, protect. Right? What do? They have the sheep. We get the wool, which makes our clothes. It's almost like they get rewarded because they provide for us clothing. Therefore, they're covered. V'hani de lo machsinan, but we don't get from goats. Minayu migalyan. They're left revealed. My time a gamla zuter genufte. Why does a camel have such a short tail? Mishum de'acha kise, because he eats from bushes with thorns, and his tail will get stuck in the thorns. My time a Torah aricha genufte. Again, this is all about how creation, everything had a purpose, and everything was created with a particular purpose in mind. Why is the ox? Why does he have a very long tail? Mishum didayar ba'agme. He lives in the swamps. And in the swamps, there's lots of flies. He needs to swat the flies, so he has his long tail that can swat the flies away. My time, akarna de kimtza rechicha. Why are the antenna of the grasshoppers very hard, very soft? Mishum didayre bechilfe. They live in a region where there's they live by very hard tree branches. The kasha, and if they were hard, Nadia, they would fall off. They would get knocked off by the hard branches, right? Things that are hard get knocked off much more easily than things that are soft. And then what would happen? Mit afra, they would go blind. How do we know this? Damar Shmuel explains, if you want to blind a locust, you're interested in doing this, Lishlefinhu lekarne, take off his antenna and you will blind him. So there you have it. That's why they're soft and not hard, because they could blind him. My time a high timur de tarnagola midale la'ela. Why do their eyelids close from bottom to top? Normally eyelids, right? We blink, it closes from the top to the bottom. Why do they close in the opposite direction? Dedaire adape, they live in the beams of the house they live high up, okay, in higher places. I'm not sure we really see this, but okay, they live in high places. The ayel katra mit avra. Again, we're worried about them being blinded. The smoke in the houses rise, and if they wouldn't be able to close their eyelids from the bottom, the smoke will get into their eyelids. So they close from the bottom to protect them from the smoke that rises up. Okay, those are the first slew of questions. He asked about all sorts of things about animals, why they were created the way they were created. Now we're going to have questions about the etymology of words. He's going to ask a whole bunch of words in Aramaic, and where do these come from? And he's going to be told that the etymology is in the style of what we call notrikon in Hebrew, which is that each word, it's like an initial for Rashi Tevo, right? It's initial, an abbreviation for something longer, okay? So each letter kind of serves as a whole word. Dasha. Dasha is a door. How do we know, like, where does it come from? Derech Sham. That's the path to get there, is through the door. Darga is the ladder. Derech Gag. Right, that's the way to the roof. Matkolita. Matkolita is this is dips that you use, like sauces and things like that. Matai tichle da. Matkolita. When will this finish? Okay, what does it mean, when will this finish? These generally last a very long time. It was funny because my mother told me yesterday, she called me up asking me how to make some tofu dish. So I told her she needs soy sauce. She said, oh, I'm not supposed to have soy sauce. So she looked in her closet first. So I asked her, how did your tofu come out? What did you end up doing in the end? So she said, well, I looked in my closet and I found some hoisin sauce. And I was excited. Oh, this looked okay. I can use this. So she says, I went to use it and then I saw that it was expired 3 years ago and I had to throw it out. But that's the kind of thing. Generally, it happened. This didn't have a long enough shelf life, but they last a very long time. She still had it on her shelf because you don't use a lot at a time. And therefore you end up with it in your house for longer. Beta. How about bayit? Where do you get your house? Ba ve'otiva, right? Come and sit in my house. Okay, maybe not nowadays. You can't invite everybody in, but that's the idea of a house. You can invite people to come sit in your house. Bikta. Okay, a small house, a narrow, a little small hut. Be'akta. It means the house that is narrow. Kufta. A barrel is called a kufta. Why? This is a funny one. Kof v'tiv. You can turn over the barrel and sit on it. Livne, okay, those are bricks. Okay, here, this reminds me of the story of the 3 little pigs. Livne bane. Bricks last a very long time. They'll last to your grandchildren. So, right, the brick house lasted longer than all the others. So there you have it. Hutza. Hutza is a fence that you make out of thorn bushes. Chatzitza. Okay, hutza chatzitza. Hutza is a what do you say? It's a barrier, but it's not really. If you make a fence out of this, it's just really a barrier. It's not really a fence. It's not very effective. Chatzba. This is a jug that they would use to get water out of the well. Shechotzev mayim min hanahar. There you have it. You draw the water out of the river. Kuza. Kuza is a small jug. Kazeh is like this, very small. Shutita. This is we call a branch of a myrtle branch, hadassim, from the Arba'at Minim on Sukkot. So shutita, why is it called the shutita? Okay, so what's the answer? Shtuta. Okay, it's from the word shtut, like to do silly things. So where does it come from? At weddings, they would dance with the hadassim. So the dancers were considered like they went crazy. So there you have it. That's why it's called the shutita. Mishichla. This is a big basin that they would use for washing. So meshichla is mashe kula. Mashe is to wash. So meshichla, kala is kula, the whole thing. So this is for washing your whole body. Mashkilta, masha kalta. This is for a kala to wash with. This was a much smaller basin they would use for washing with, which they say either a kala would use before her wedding or important women would use a smaller basin. I guess they wanted to more carefully wash smaller parts of their body maybe, so they would use a smaller basin. Asita. Okay, this is now we're going to dart on the mortar and the pestle. Why is each part called what it's called? So the mortar, which is the base, chaserta. Asita sounds like chaserta. Okay, you switch a few letters and you get to chaserta. So, or you add a letter here and there also. Obviously, this whole thing is a little bit open to interpretation. It's missing something. Rashi explains because you kind of take a utensil and then you take part of it out and then you end up with the shape of the pestle, of the mortar, I mean. The pestle, buchna, the part that you hit, is bo va'akena. It's called a buchna because it's bo va'akena. Come and pound me, right? That's what it's used for, pounding. Now we're going to talk about some clothing. Levusha, clothing that you will wear, the outer clothing. Lo busha, you won't be embarrassed because you're covering yourself, right? And then they say you would not just embarrassed because of your clothes, but because of your body, but they're saying that this you would wear over your clothes, so if your clothes were torn or something, you wouldn't be embarrassed by what you were wearing underneath. Glima, this is a big cloak. Shenasabo kigelem, right? You look formless, shapeless, right? You can't see any shape of your body when you're wearing it. Gulta, this is another type of coat that's very long. Gale va'otiv, you have to pick it up, reveal what's underneath when you sit down, because it's too long. Puria is a bed. Sheparina v'ravin aleha, because you have, it's the way you get to making children is through the bed, so therefore, purei urave comes from there. Bor zinka, an empty bore, right, where you're supposed to have water and there's nothing in it. Bor ze naki, this bore is clean, empty. Sudra, this is what the Talmidei Chachamim would wear around their heads. They would have a sudar, type of cap. Where do you get that from? Sod Hashem li re'av. This is a siman of someone who God speaks to these people, right? They know the secrets of God because they wear this sudra. A panda, a castle, or the castle of the king. Why is it called a panda? A pitchaden, because everybody goes in here. Now, either people are coming to be judged by the king or people are coming to serve the king. In other words, a place where a lot of people go through. Okay, there we end our etymologies. Why he's asking these questions, I don't really know, right? We really got here because we were talking about the animals and the significance of the animals and how things are the way of the world. And because of that, we got there. Okay, I see someone corrected me. I said it a panda, it's a padna, not a panda. That's something else. Okay, thank you for the correction. Okay, one last thing about animals. Tanu Rabbanan, another braita. Shlosha kozman shemazkinim mosifim gvura. The following three, the older they get, the stronger they get, right? We all know that as we get older, we get weaker as time goes on, right? There's a certain extent you get stronger and then you start going down. Some of us are already getting to that stage. Anyway, they say here there's three creatures that actually get stronger as they age. What are they? Unfortunately, not us. Eluhain dag v'nachash v'chazir. Fish, snakes, and pigs. Okay, last section for today. Shemen kedei lasuch ever katan. We're going to go a little bit into Ayin Chen and Aleph just to kind of finish the sugya. Okay, the Mishnah had said oil, how much oil? In order to anoint a small part of your body. Now, what's the obvious problem here? Small is very relative. Small on a small person, small on a big person. What are we talking about? So, Amrei Debei Rabbi Yanai, they say that in the house of Rabbi Yanai, he said, Shemen kedei lasuch ever katan shal katan ben yomo. Even the small part of a body of a newborn baby. First day born, teeny, that's little. Meitive, they bring a contradiction, but it says in the following braita, Shemen kedei lasuch ever katan v'katan ben yomo. It sounds like two different things, either an ever katan or a katan who's 1 day old. My love, doesn't it mean then ever katan de gadol ve'ever katan a gadol shal katan ben yomo? Maybe it means the first is a small part of a large person's body or a large part of a small person's body. So Amrei lecha debei Rabbi Yanai lo. Debei Rabbi Yanai says, no, that's not a contradiction. We can read it our way, which is hachikama. This is what they meant to say. Shemen kedei lasuch ever katan shel katan ben yomo. The vav didn't mean this and that. It meant this of that. Okay, an ever katan of a small child. So now the Gemara suggests lema kitanai. Maybe this is actually a machloka between two tanaim. And how do we see this? Here's the source. Shemen kedei lasuch ever katan v'katan ben yomo divrei Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. That's one opinion. The Rabbi Natan omer kedei lasuch ever katan. And maybe, so one says, now it's not so clear what they're saying, but one says ever katan and katan ben yomo, and one says just ever katan. So what's the difference? Ma la b'hakamiflage. Maybe this is the machloket. The Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar savar ever katan shel katan. He was saying an ever katan b'katan ben yomo means the way we explained it, which is an ever katan of a katan who is one ben yomo. And when Rabbi Natan said ever katan, he meant Rabbi Natan savar ever katan de gadol. he meant the Ever Katan of a grown person, O Ever Gadol de Katan, or a big Ever of a small person. Aval Ever Katan shel Katan ben Yomo lo. But if you want to say the amount that it takes to put some oil on a very small limb of a child's body, a little child, that certainly wouldn't be the case. So maybe that's their machloket. The Gemara rejects this. This is low. No. Nobody thinks that that's a significant amount. Okay, basically rejecting, and now they're going to say beleta de Rabbi Yanai, and what they said, Rabbi Yanai said it can't be, can't possibly be. Why would anybody think that? So what's the machloket between the two of them? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar savar ever katan de gadol ve'ever gadol de katan ben yomo ki adadininu. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is telling you ever katan and katan ben yomo to teach you that they're one and the same. If you want to say a large limb of a small baby and a small limb of a large person, those are the same shiur. And what's Rabbi Natan? When he says Ever Katan, Rabbi Natan is saying, Rabbi Natan savar Ever Katan de Gadol in Ever Gadol de Katan ben Yomo lo. No. In Ever Katan of a Gadol is not the same as a large limb of a teeny baby, right? That's not, teeny baby, large limb is still teeny, right? You look at those babies, they're so teeny on the first day. That's not equal to that amount. Okay, they're not one and the same. And the machloket is really about, is the Ever Katan of a Gadol of a Katan, Ben Yomo, equal to that, or is it not equal to that? Why don't we say that's the machloket? So that's what they think right now. But they end with my have'alei. So really, what's the case? Was Rabbi Yanai correct in saying that kedei lasuf Ever Katan shel Katan Ben Yomo, that it could even be an Ever Katan of a Katan Ben Yomo, which the Gemara now rejected and said, no. It's only potentially, right? Then there's a machloket between two Tanaim, potentially a large limb of a small child, but only that, not a small limb of a small child. That's definitely not the case. So, my have'ala, Tashma, let's learn from the following source. There's another Braita, Ditanya, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, he was the one we were trying to figure out what he says. Shemen kedei lasuch Ever Katan shel Katan ben Yomo. In fact, the real gear, or we found a Braita that had a different version, and there it said very clearly, exactly like Rabbi Yanai had said originally. The part that we rejected, he says that specifically. That we're even talking about the amount on Shabbat your chayav is even if you take out a small, right, the amount to anoint a small limb of a small child, okay? Which even a baby, first day, you're already going to be obligated. So there you see that Rabbi Yanai actually must have been correct in what he said, and we don't need to change what he said, and that matches Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, and that in fact is the machloket between him and Rabbi Natan, at least according to this version of the Braita. One could say maybe, there's different versions, but that's what they seem to conclude, and we'll end with this for today, and we'll continue more with the Mishnah tomorrow.